It's all interrelated with the whole bite, chew, and swallow, the oral motor, the engagement, the speech and language, the cognition and learning, the social communication and family time, the nutritional elements that feed your body, feed the brain, that then also feed your immunity system, make you stronger, your microbiome, so then your brain and your gut can communicate without discomfort. If you're a good chewer and a good swallower and you have good jaw height, which means that at rest, your lips are closed and you're breathing comfortably through your nose, then you're typically a better sleeper, and then you can have rest and repair. It's all connected. Hello, and welcome to Talking Toddlers, where I share more than just tips and tricks on how to reduce tantrums or build your toddler's vocabulary. We're going to cover all of that, I assure you. But here, our goal is to develop clarity, because in this modern world, it's truly overwhelming, especially during these past 2 years. This podcast is about empowering moms to know the difference between fact and fiction, to never give up, to tap into everyday activities so your child stays on track. He's not falling behind, he's thriving through your guidance. We know that true learning starts at home, and Talking Toddlers, this podcast helps you develop that with clarity, confidence, and clear communication. So let's get started. Okay, so let's jump right back into our 15 strategies for adventurous eating. How best to stop picky eaters in their tracks. And for the last 2 episodes, numbers 39 and 40 respectively, I covered numbers 1 through 10. So 5 for each session. This week, we're going to jump right back in to number 11. And if you haven't listened to those previous episodes, feel free to go back and look. You don't have to do it right now, but it would be very smart and helpful to get the whole 15 items in a package. And of course, there are other things, but I tried to look at strategies that would really set the stage and help you navigate this first 6 months, 12 months, and a couple of years, from 6 months of age all the way through their 3rd birthday. Number 11, avoid labels. So I feel this is true for most areas in life, especially as a new parent. I've seen this over and over again as a speech language pathologist for several decades now. But labels tend to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if there's a negative label, then we as humans tend to use it as an excuse not to go there, right? So labels that I have heard over and over again, besides picky eater, oh, he's not a good reader. He's a slow reader. Oh, she's not good at math. She's a bad sleeper. She's shy. Or, oh, he's just a klutz. He'll never learn. Those labels really affect how we perceive ourselves in this world. And so when a child is refusing dinner for the umpteenth time and you just want to scream and pull your hair out, why are you such a picky eater? This really sets the stage for their identification. We continue to discuss it with our partner. We, label them at the school. Don't worry, he's just a picky eater. He won't try it, blah, blah, blah. And so it's really important that we acknowledge that words matter, right? So we could just shift it a little bit by saying, oh, she is selective, or she's learning how to embrace vegetables, or she's practicing. She's learning how to chew all of her vegetables and then swallow them down She's figuring it out. She's on the job learning, right? And so the labels are really, really hard because it puts pressure on them and it puts pressure on us, right? It's very stressful and we eat several times a day. So it's over and over and over again. And I know you, the parents, are like literally pulling your hair out and trying to help encourage a baby, a toddler, a preschooler to learn how to eat in this modern world. I think our culture, especially in America, we've moved so far away from the pleasure of eating, the social elements to it, and we've moved away from connecting as a family through shared meals. So remember that your biggest desire is that they develop over time a healthy relationship with eating, and that food supports their growth and development, and that this is part of your dream, your desire, your goal, your aspiration, that you want to create a family that really embraces mealtime, that we work together, and setting the stage with these strategies will help you get there, I assure you. Plus, it reduces the stress overall from day to day and week to week and year to year. So try your best to be mindful. If you catch yourself calling him or her a picky eater, or that you're a picky eater, try to shift that, because I continually say on here, with neuroplasticity, we can relearn something. We can build a better way if we're given time and opportunity. So just be mindful of the whole label, especially because they hear it over and over again, and that becomes their identity. So be careful. And that goes with everything else I said: math, science, swimming, biking, you name it. So let's move on to number 12. This would be make mealtime fun. And I know I've talked in previous episodes about being creative and being playful and all of this, but we're setting the stage. We're setting our emotional relationship with meals, food, family, all of this. So depending where you are on this journey, you might be in the thick of it. You might have a 2 or a 3-year-old who's pushing all kinds of food away from you, or you might just be starting. But meal times with a picky eater is incredibly stressful. So if we can pull back our emotional expectations and really look at the whole experience, not just what they're eating, right? And so we can catch ourselves by saying, oh, eat your dinner, eat. Come on, take one more bite, just one more bite. You haven't touched a thing. How can you say that you're not hungry or that you don't like it? You haven't even tried it. Come on, just one bite, just for mama. Just take one bite. We do all kinds of pressure on ourselves, on them, and all of the stress just starts to build. Remember, our key, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, that your job is to provide healthy food options. Their job, your son, your daughter, is to decide if they're going to eat it, and if so, how much. We can't force them, and nagging and pushing only makes them dig their heels in more. A 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old doesn't really understand what nutrition means, doesn't say we need it to be healthy. They don't know that yet. We're setting the stage of their identification that broccoli is healthier than a Pop-Tart. We're setting the stage that water, our body thrives on water more than orange juice. We have to enlighten them and help them understand how it works in this world. But if we're nagging them, their human reaction is to dig their heels in even more. So instead of focusing on him or her eating, the actual physical part of putting something in their mouth, chewing it and swallowing it, try to focus on making an enjoyable experience, especially in these first couple of years. But if you're just at the beginning of this stage, then really set the joy, the fun, the togetherness around this. So share the experience over the food, right? And I know it's hard, but think of the more that you talk and become relaxed in this meal. So share the experience over the actual feeding of the food. Talk with them. Ask them questions about their day. What was their favorite thing that they did if they went to daycare? Or what do you want to do tomorrow? You can ask specific questions if they're a little bit older, like, did you play with your best friend Joey? Did you guys swing together? What did you do in art class? Take the focus away from eating your broccoli and chewing with your mouth closed and put it on the conversation, put it on us spending time together. And like with little kids, you could even play a game like Simon Says. You could say, Simon says, take a bite of something green. Or Simon says, eat something that is crunchy. Or you could even say, Simon says, take a huge dinosaur bite of the chicken. Bark, 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 bark. And you're being present with them. I continually talk about the 3 Ps, being present, being purposeful, and being playful. And this builds that social communication. It builds their connection with you. And with slightly older toddlers, you could play, Would You Rather? That's a fun game. Would you rather swim in a pool or would you rather go ice skating? And it's just getting them to listen and engage with you. And the food then becomes the backdrop. You could, again, with slightly older kids, you could play 3 truths and a lie, building their language skills, building their attention and listening and deductive reasoning. Right? You can say, oh, chickens live in the garage. That's a lie. Or you could say chickens live on the farm. All kinds of different things that you could just play with them during this beautiful meal. And before they know it, they're chomping on their food and talking with you and engaging, and you're enjoying this whole experience together. So at the very least, during this creative family time, if they're not actually eating, they're learning social skills, how to sit at the table, how to wait, how to ask politely, improving their listening skills if you're going to play a little game or you're asking them questions or you're telling about your day. I always did this with my daughter. And I remember she was like 2.5 and she bangs on the table ever so slightly. She says, okay, Mama, now it's your turn. Tell me, how was your day? And I'll never forget just giggling on the insides, feeling like she gets this. This is a shared experience, and we're building social communication. And at the same time, we get to feed our bodies and our mind, right? It's all about the enjoyable experience. So I do think it's important that we understand we the grown-ups have a conversation with them and share a little bit about your day, because then you're modeling the social connection. For example, when my daughter would say, well, how about you, Mama? How was your day? I would demonstrate, I'd think, and I'd say, let me think. Oh yeah, I met a new little boy named Michael, and he really loves trains. And Michael and I played with Mr. Potato Head. Remember, I have Potato Head at my office. We also sang a couple of nursery rhymes. Hey, sweetie, what's your favorite nursery rhymes? And so I'm demonstrating how social communication is used during this mealtime together. And I'm modeling that I reflect back. I share some specifics. I don't get in the nitty gritty, right? I simplify it. She knew what I did for a living. I played with kids. It was easy. But it's really important that we demonstrate during this very pleasant experience how to communicate, how to share. Okay, so moving on to number 13. Don't get stuck in a rut. And what that means is we all have kind of our favorite meal, our gold medal meals, and that we can have 2 or 3 or 4 times in the same week. And if we don't expand our horizons, then our little ones will never expand their horizons. And when they're then introduced to something that's novel or new or kind of bizarre looking, they're not going to be open to it. So in these beginning stages, it's about exploration and encouraging a variety. So I challenge you to challenge yourself to add new elements. Swap out the side dishes or prepare it in a different form. Instead of always having sliced potatoes or mashed potatoes, use it in a shepherd's pie. And the internet is a beautiful tool that we can get endless ideas from. And one of the things that my family did was to make a book of our favorite meals, as well as expanding on them, certain categories, right? Chicken or vegetable dishes or pork or this or that. One of the sweetest things I remember when my daughter finally moved out of the dorm and got a place of her own with some roommates, she asked to take pictures of our cookbook, and she pulled things that really spoke to her. And it was such a great kind of aha moment for me as a mom to really acknowledge that that we together as a family did the best for her, and that she's going out into this big, interesting world that we live in. And she really is a foodie. She really embraces a wide variety. And she has a couple of sweet friends that I have seen over the years that are very picky eaters, still in their 20s. And one, it's frustrating for her when they travel or go out, and she's trying to be respectful, and they're trying to be respectful that they have a limited palate, and it's tricky. It's tricky business as a young adult, and so we want to set the stage. We want to give them a really, really wide variety. So remember that it's the ingredients and the textures between that 6 to 9 months. And you can add different variety. Egg muffins, for example, where I have more egg in it than I do the flour, whether it's almond flour or coconut flour or even some wheat. I don't eat a lot of wheat in my family, but there's a lot of alternative flours that you can use. But then you can add a variety of other flavors, onions and garlic and cheese and meat and bacon and vegetables, and make these delicious egg muffins. In this stage, it's also really important to you're building their biting skills. And in a future episode, I'm really going to talk a lot about chewing, biting, chewing, and swallowing, and that oral motor development and how it really can make or break your relationship with food, but it also makes or breaks your relationship with speech. And then it can snowball into difficulty breathing through your nasal passage. And so it becomes this kind of muddy, murky water. But we want to take advantage of that biting reflex and encourage them. You can use some ribs, use a mango pit. I've seen kids really gnaw on that, and chicken drumsticks. And I know parents will sometimes push back and say, what? My kid gnawing on a chicken drumstick? You make it safe, right? You remove the fat and the skin and any kind of ligament or tendon that they can have. It's really just the big bone and a couple of chunks of meat. And some parents are even uncomfortable with their chewing skills at that time, so they'll remove the vast majority of the meat and is really just chewing and gnawing on a very, very flavorful piece of food and gnawing on it, but getting that biting exercise. And I mentioned this in a previous episode, that it's really, really important that they're chewing on both sides and not just in the front. And most kids don't really bite up front, that it's if we put things on their lateral margins where their molars will grow over the next year or so. It's really important that they have that experience every single day. Okay, so don't get in a rut, expand, plan ahead, do some batch cooking. In a future episode, I'm going to talk a lot about that, and be creative. And in relation to, I'll talk about this in batch cooking, but in relation to vegetables, you don't want to waste food, then I really, really recommend frozen vegetables, because you can have a wide variety and you can use it in a variety of recipes and really expand your horizons with that. But then you can make these things up and then freeze them, and try your best not to get stuck in a rut and you have your 3 or 4 meals. Okay, so number 14, and this is my favorite recommendation, and I talk a lot about this, but it's also can run so deep and wide. It's about include them in the process. And you can start at this at 18 months of age, right? But even younger, they can watch you. You can talk about them. Oh, look, I'm cutting up cucumbers. Here's a cucumber. And you're using language. You're being engaging with them. You're happy. You're smiling. You're playful. And they're getting that feeling around this kitchen process and food that it's happy, right? It's just like when you go to the park or when you take a bath. If your kids like those activities, then it feels really, really good to them. And here's a side note. Remember how emotions create our memories, right? Whether we like something or whether we dislike something. And I'm sure all of you have experienced some kind of you smell something and it can bring back some warm, fuzzy memories, such as, chocolate chip cookies baking in the oven, or it can bring back some toxic reaction, right? If you, say a certain smell like chlorine, maybe you tripped and fell at the pool, and just the smell of the pool scenario freaks you out. And that's the same around helping your kids learn how to love the whole eating experience, right? And let me give you a little science geekiness on this, but it happens because our amygdala, which is part of the brain, and this has been shown in a wide variety of studies, is shown to activate with emotional events, and that it really helps us with memory, right? If we're in a good place, if we're feeling happy and lighthearted, then we're better able to remember events, right? But also you can have the strong opposite. If it's negative, you also remember that. Think about where were you when you first heard about 9/11? And you probably remember the weather the day that your child was born, right? Because they're so emotional to us that we can remember based on our emotion, the event. So our amygdala boosts the memory encoding, which is the brain mapping, and it enhances attention and perception. So this memory retention is triggered by the release of stress hormones, such as adrenaline or cortisol, which boost our arousal, but if it's attached to something that's unpleasant or stressful or makes us feel anxious or uncomfortable, then we're not going to have a positive association with eating or sitting in the high chair or certain smells. If you had a bad experience and you had this delicious broccoli in front of you with some butter, some spice and whatnot, but every time you smell that, it makes you kind of gag, then that's a negative association. So just keep that in mind. And it's really part of our survival mechanism. Remember, the vast majority of us, if not all of us, just wants to survive another day. And we, as human beings, we have to continually override this basic mindset. I just want to hide out in the cave and eat when I have to and move when I have to. So we have to build positive relationships or positive emotion with this pleasant experience of sitting around and sharing this meal. So think about including them in this process that can really begin starting at 18 months. If I've talked about some high chairs, I know I've mentioned what's critical for safety and all of this, but there's also a very popular piece called a learning tower. It's an investment, but it is so life-saving for kids to become part of the meal prep. And I have a future episode coming talking about different furniture and toys and kitchen equipment that can really help mitigate the challenge and really boost the engagement and the playfulness and the positivity and the success. So then over a couple of months and a couple of years, it just continues to build, right? By including them, like I said, an 18-month-old can start shredding lettuce. An 18-month-old, if you set them up in a learning tower, if they have good stability, you can get them to, here, help mama wash these carrots. And kids love water. You know this. And if they splash, no big deal. It's just water. But they can then connect with, once they sit down and they see the carrots on their plate, oh, honey, you helped mama wash them. That was so great. Now we get to eat them. And so, again, depending on their age, their ability, where they are in this beautiful developmental flow of things, they can learn how to pour, whisk, stir. They can rinse vegetables and fruit, a little scrub, like I said. You can do a lot of hand over hand in the beginning. 18 months old, you can start. And then by 2 years of age, for sure, you can help them stir. They can dump, dry ingredients or crack an egg with you. Again, you're doing 90% of it, but they're part of the process. It's fun. They are honing both their gross motor skills and their fine motor skills. And they're really, really appreciating not only the task, but being with you. You know this, toddlers want to be with us. They want to do what we're doing. And if we can pull them in, even though it might take you a little bit longer, even though you might have some spillage, it's so worth it because this 2-year-old will soon be 4 and their skills will be 1,000 times better. And then he'll be 6 and then 8 and then 10. And with older toddlers, you can really pull them in. It's such a rich, rich language experience. And this is what I'm always talking about. You have the physical development of learning how to chew and swallow and all of that. You have the physical development of object play, right? To them, this is all just play. If we're doing it joyfully and with love in our heart, then it feels wonderful to them. Then it's the language and the cognitive growth. And you can learn how to make a list. And then we go to the grocery store and we shop together. And then you can come home and you can put the stuff away and you can ask them, honey, I forgot. Where do we put the carrots? Can you help me? Do we put the carrots in this drawer? No. Do we put the carrots in the fridge? Yeah, can you do that for me? And then tomorrow, when I say, honey, I need the carrots, can you find them? You put them away yesterday. So this is all really rich language exposure, right? Now that you put the carrots away, can you put the onions away? Where did they go? Do they go in the fridge, do you think? And if they don't know, which, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old isn't going to know, you say, no, onions never go in the fridge. They go in this basket. They have to stay dry. The fridge is cold. So just think about all the rich language. You're comparing, contrasting, you're showing them organization and order. And then tomorrow, they have to go back because this was a pleasant experience. They're more likely to have mapped it. It's in their long-term storage. And when you say, I need an onion, do you remember? Do you remember where the onions are? Get me one onion. And then you smell it, and they can certainly help you peel off the skin, the outer skin of the onion. And so it's all this rich interconnection. It is so mind-boggling if we as the grown-ups, I know in this fast-paced, immediate gratification world, if we can just give them this opportunity to lay this foundation and be part of the family, and it will just get better and better and better. So for the last one, number 15, it's pretty obvious, but I think it ties it all together. It's just stay positive, and that you keep it in perspective, and that if you're positive, then they're going to be open and more positive. Keep exposing your kids to nutrition, to the beauty and the wealth of nutrition, that eating for pleasure, eating with satisfaction is such a huge milestone, a huge piece of building a healthy, thriving, robust, gregarious, eager, curious, all these wonderful adjectives. That's what you're looking for, right? And that parenting across the board often takes so much time to be able to see the fruits of your labor, to be able to see the other side. If we're patient and supportive and loving and give them a wide variety of opportunities, then when they're 6, even though they might push back a little bit, and in a previous episode, I talk about neophobia, which is part of our humanness to push back on new foods as part of our safety, and that can occur somewhere around that 2nd, 3rd birthday. But if you've already given them a year and a half of beautiful opportunities, then they're not going to push back so hard. They're not going to be too fussy. They will be fussy. You know this. This is human nature too. And it might not really be about the food. It might be they're looking for a sense of control, that they're looking for their autonomy and their place in this world. And if you have that wiggle room and you've given them 100 different foods, and in a future episode, I'm going to talk more closely about those different categories and how you introduce them. But then when they do push back, you have many options in your whole repertoire to choose from. But to stay positive and to recognize that you're supporting this magnificent milestone, and that you do that in other milestones, helping them to roll over, helping them to walk, helping them to learn how to pump their legs and swing, helping them to go to the toilet, right? So you have to show them and help them, guide them through speaking and eating and chewing and social communication. And it's all interwoven. And that's what Talking Toddlers is all about to me. It's about how do we, yes, look at the whole child, but also how does the whole child with their intricate networks, how is that really working underneath, right? How can we, with the more knowledge and the more awareness that we can gather as the grown-ups, as the parents in charge, how can we support that? So I think all of these strategies are incredibly important. And of course, there's many, many nuances to each of them. But I still think that getting your kids cooking in the kitchen is the best way to tackle a picky eater. So if by chance you're listening to this and you already have a picky eater, or don't use that label, right? But if you have a child who is being hyper selective, then look at these choices. Look through, what are my flavors? What are different textures or sizes? Have I allowed them to be messy and creative? Can we just be messy and creative in the food prep? And then even if he doesn't eat it with me, at least he's building a positive relationship with food. Have you modeled? Have you shown them? Honey, this tastes so good. I love roasted chicken. Oh, it's so yummy. And you're not teasing them, and you're just showing them, and then giving, you want a little? You want some more chicken? And they might shake their head, no. But they will attend and listen to you if you're demonstrating pleasure in the experience. And then, number 5 was to respect their limits. If they're not interested in eating it, but they're sitting quietly at the table and they're looking and they're engaged, they're thinking about it. They're learning how it feels to be there with you during mealtime and perhaps taking a bite or two, right? So number 6 was one meal. Are you a short order cook, or are you a one meal family? How can you turn that around? Do you tend to bribe them? If you eat 3 bites of your meat, then you can have some pudding or ice cream or a cookie, and you're showing them that the tastes run on a scale and that this first helping is yucky and you have to kind of choke it down by eating a dessert. You don't want to go there. Right? And if you are bribing, or if you have kind of say you have to eat everything on your plate, that whole clean plate rule, then just stop. Just stop. If you catch yourself, well, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean that, honey. If you want to take a bite, go ahead. You have to give them that wiggle room. Otherwise, it's going to be a battle for years on end with the vast majority. And I've shared this before. And one of the reasons why I'm trying to pull this together is because it's affecting so many of our kids. By the time they get into preschool or kindergarten, 50% of you new moms identify, or moms with kids under 6, identify at least one of your children as a picky eater. And that mealtime is stressful and anxiety provoking and frustrating, and no one wins. You as a grown-up and the leader in charge, and your kids. It's frustrating, and it just becomes, you've seen, if you don't have one yet, praise the Lord, but you've seen it with other people. So give them choices, be creative, always be open to expanding your spices and your herbs, right? And then I talked at length last week about the witching hour. And that's why in a future episode, I'm going to talk about batch cooking and meal prep, because that witching hour can really make or break it. And it has nothing to do with the food. It has nothing to do with you. It really is just that time of day that everybody is frustrated. Everybody is at their wits' end, and it's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or thereabouts. And it's a hard transition. So if we plan ahead, we can mitigate some of that angst and struggle. And then today I talked about the labels, make mealtime fun, don't get stuck in a rut, include them in the process. And I'm going to talk a lot more about how you can continue to do that, because it's rich language. It's great social engagement. They're a part of it. They're beginning cognitively. And so if you buy the carrots and the green beans in the grocery store, and you label them. They're vegetables, right? Green beans grow on a bush and carrots grow under the ground. And then you cook them together and then you eat them together. They cognitively understand the relationship versus just sitting them down on the table and say, here, eat your veggies, eat your chicken, eat your pork. And they don't have an association. They don't really understand what eating is all about. And I talked a little bit about an additional sense. Basically, everybody knows that you have 5 senses, but last week I mentioned that there was interoception, which is that sense of feeling hungry or full or thirsty or tired, or you have to go pee or your legs ache or any of that internal sense of what's going on inside your body. And so all of these things are really important strategies to understand and to try to be purposeful and thoughtful. And then the last one, stay positive. If you have a picky eater, we can talk about strategies, or we will talk about strategies. Don't beat yourself up. In this modern world, holy cow, it's really, really hard with the advertising and big ag and big farm, and even your pediatrician. They have their purpose, but they're not really good nutritionists by any means, nor are they really well educated or trained in early speech and language development and oral motor skills, or how to baby-led wean your little one. They have some cursory knowledge, but I know it's a complicated world we live in, and the information is overwhelming. It's hard to navigate, and that's why I'm really here to help you to understand truth from fiction and distortion and embellishment. And you're up against a lot of big entities, big systems that don't always speak to you, Mom, for your sake and your child's sake. So thanks for sharing your time and being open to learning and open to explore. If you're finding benefit, please share with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm really excited about working on these and sharing them with you each and every week. To tease a few of the topics, meal prep and batch cooking, like I mentioned earlier, how to teach chewing and how oral motor skills for speech and chewing are connected, and how can we enhance those skills, how some physical activities and games and sports and whatnot to support their upper body strength, which helps them engage and attend. So meal and eating and speech are all really well received, how to enhance language-based learning and cognition, and then some of the basics of some baby gear and some furnishings that can be an investment, but is it worth it? And I will talk about the pros and cons, as well as toys and whatnot. And we'll continue the conversations around play and how to enhance that and what that really means for your toddlers, because you're laying the foundation. It's lifelong learning, and you're in charge. And I'm here to help you weed through all the BS out there. I think there are some good people online trying to push this healthy message and to create a really well-balanced home life. And so thanks again for spending your time with me, and I look forward to the future episodes. God bless. Take care. Bye. So we will continue this conversation because, as I said before, it's all interrelated. Eating with the whole bite, chew, and swallow, the oral motor, the engagement, the speech and language, the cognition and learning, the social communication and family time, family connection for emotional well-being. Of course, the nutritional elements that feed your body, feed the brain, that then also feed your immunity system, make you stronger, your microbiome, so then your brain and your gut can communicate without discomfort. If you're a good chewer and a good swallower and you have good jaw height, which means that at rest, your lips are closed and you're breathing comfortably through your nose, then you're typically a better sleeper, and then you can have rest and repair. It's all connected. So, on that note, please, thank you so much. So on that note, thanks for sharing your precious time. Again, if you're finding benefit, please share with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe, because as I said, I have a lot of wonderful episodes that have been made and are being edited and reworked, but around batch cooking and meal prep and how to teach chewing and how to connect that with speech and speech sounds and how they develop in synchronicity. Talk about different physical activities that can support upper body and lower body connection that will build gross motor skills and fine motor skills, how to enhance language-based learning and cognition, and then to talk about some of the basics like baby gear and toys and what do you need and what do you not need. So these are all in the future, and I'm so excited to bring it to you. So don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to share with your friends and family. And thank you again from the bottom of my heart. God bless.